Imagine a world on fire. A world where the very idea of a nation is being forged in the crucible of conflict, hope, and an unyielding desire for freedom. This isn't some far-off fantasy. This was the reality for the American colonies in the mid-18th century. Welcome to the birth of a nation. For over a century and a half, 13 distinct colonies had dotted the eastern coast of North America. They were a patchwork of different cultures, economies, and even religions. A farmer in the rolling hills of Virginia had little in common with a bustling merchant in Boston, and a quiet Quaker in Pennsylvania saw the world differently than a rugged frontiersman in the Carolinas. They were British subjects, yes, but their primary identity was tied to their colony, their town, their home. The idea of being American was still a whisper, a faint melody, not yet fully composed. Their connection to Great Britain, the mother country an ocean away, was complicated. It was a bond of heritage, language, and trade, but it was also a chain of command. London was the center of power, and the colonies were on the periphery, expected to serve the economic and political interests of the empire. For a long time, this system, though not perfect, was accepted. The colonies were protected by the mighty British military and had access to a vast global trade network. A certain salutary neglect from Britain allowed the colonies to develop their own forms of local government and a fierce spirit of self. They built their own assemblies, passed their own local laws, and learned the art of governing themselves, all under the watchful but distant eye of the crown. But then, everything changed. The year was 1763. Britain had just won the 7 Years' War, known in North America as the French and Indian War. It was a massive, globe-spanning conflict that left Britain victorious but also buried under a mountain of debt. King George III and his parliament looked across the Atlantic at their American colonies that had benefited immensely from the war's outcome. Now secured from French and Native American threats, and they saw a solution. It was time for the Americans to pay their fair share for the defense and administration of the empire. This shift in policy was a shock to the system. Suddenly, the distant hand of Britain was no longer so distant. It began with the proclamation of 1763, forbidding colonists from settling west of the Appalachian Mountains, a move that infuriated land speculators and pioneers who saw the West as their destiny. Then came the taxes. The Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts. These weren't just about money. They were about a fundamental principle. For generations, the colonists had held dear the English right that there should be no taxation without representation. They had no members in the British Parliament, so how could Parliament legally take their money? The cry of no taxation without representation echoed from the taverns of Philadelphia to the docks of Charleston. It became the rallying cry of a burgeoning resistance. At first, the protest was one of words and pamphlets. Brilliant thinkers like James Otis, Patrick Henry, and Samuel Adams used their powerful voices and pens to articulate the colonists' grievances, arguing that their rights as Englishmen were being trampled. They weren't calling for independence. Not yet. They were calling for justice, for a return to the relationship they once had. But as Britain doubled down, sending more troops and enacting more punitive measures, the protests grew more physical. Boycotts of British goods were organized, crippling trade and hitting British merchants where it hurt their wallets. Groups like the Sons of Liberty and Daughters of Liberty formed, taking direct action. There were protests, sometimes peaceful, sometimes not. The infamous Boston Massacre in 1770, where British soldiers fired into a crowd of agitated colonists, became a powerful piece of propaganda, fanning the flames of resentment. The image of fallen colonists, martyrs for liberty, was seared into the American consciousness. The Boston Tea Party of 1773 was a turning point. It wasn't just a drunken riot. It was a calculated act of political defiance. Dressed as Mohawk Indians, colonists dumped a fortune's worth of British tea into Boston Harbor, a direct challenge to Parliament's authority and the monopolistic British East India Company. Britain's response was swift and harsh. They passed what the colonists called the Intolerable Acts, a series of laws designed to punish Boston Harbor was closed, the Massachusetts government was dissolved, and British troops were quartered in private homes. But instead of isolating Massachusetts, the Intolerable Acts did the opposite. They created a wave of sympathy and unity throughout the other 12 colonies. If Britain could do this to Massachusetts, they could do it to any of them. The faint whisper of being American was growing louder. The shared threat was melting away the old colonial rivalries. A sense of common cause, a shared destiny, began to take root. They were no longer just Virginians, New Yorkers, or Georgians. They were Americans, united in their struggle against what they saw as tyranny. In response to this crisis, a remarkable thing happened. In 1774, delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies, all except Georgia, gathered in Philadelphia for the first Continental Congress. Imagine the scene. Men who were strangers, rivals just a few years earlier, now sitting in the same room, debating the future. There were fiery radicals and cautious moderates. They argued, they compromised, and ultimately, they agreed to a coordinated boycott of British goods and sent a petition to the king, pleading for a peaceful resolution. But peace was no longer an option. The wheels of revolution were in motion, and they were gaining speed. Across the colonies, militias began to drill openly on village greens, stockpiling weapons and gunpowder. A sense of inevitability hung in the air. The turmoil of a decade of protest had given way to a quiet, steely resolve. Hope was blooming in the face of uncertainty, and a fragile unity was being forged in the fires of resistance. The stage was set. The first shots were about to be fired in a conflict that would not only decide the fate of 13 colonies, but would also give birth to a new nation, founded on the radical idea that ordinary people could govern themselves. The American Revolution had begun. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. This is just the beginning of an incredible story of struggle, sacrifice, and the creation of the United States. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Imagine this. It's the mid-1770s. The American colonies are buzzing, not just with market day chatter, but with the whispers and shouts of revolution. Tensions with Great Britain have reached a boiling point. The battles of Lexington and Concord have already been fought. The Second Continental Congress is in session in Philadelphia, grappling with the monumental task of guiding 13 disparate colonies through a war against the most powerful empire on earth. Now, think about the soldiers gathering. A farmer from Massachusetts stands next to a blacksmith from Virginia, who's shoulder to shoulder with a merchant from South Carolina. They're all united by a common cause, liberty, but what do they rally behind? What visual symbol represents their shared struggle? At the beginning of the conflict, the answer was, well, complicated. Each colony, and sometimes even individual militias, had their own flags. You had flags with rattlesnakes saying, "Don't tread on me," like the Gadsden flag. Others featured liberty trees, anchors, or unique local symbols. These banners were powerful and passionate, but they told a story of 13 separate entities, not one unified nation. When General George Washington took command of the Continental Army in 1775, he was faced with this kaleidoscope of colors and symbols. It was a logistical and psychological nightmare. How do you build a cohesive army? A single fighting force, when your regiments look like they belong to different countries? It was confusing on the battlefield. An ally might be mistaken for an enemy, and vice versa. More importantly, it sent a mixed message. Were they 13 small rebellions, or were they one people, united in a singular, world-changing purpose? The delegates at the Continental Congress, men like John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, understood this perfectly. They were brilliant thinkers, and they knew that wars aren't just won with muskets and cannons. They are won with ideas, with spirit, and with symbols that can capture the hearts and minds of the people. They needed something that every soldier, every citizen, from New Hampshire to Georgia, could look at and see themselves, their neighbors, and their shared future. This wasn't just about military strategy. It was about nation building. A flag is a declaration. It says to the world, we are here. We are one. This is what we stand for. For the American colonies, it was a way to move beyond their identities as Virginians or New Yorkers and embrace a new, shared identity as Americans. They needed a banner that would not only represent their union, but also project an image of strength and resolve to potential allies like France and Spain, whose help they desperately needed. Think of it like a brand. Before you can sell a product, you need a logo that people recognize and trust. The colonies needed a logo for liberty. A single, recognizable flag would be a powerful piece of propaganda. It would flutter over forts, march into battle, and sail on the high seas, a constant, visible reminder of the Union and its ideals. It was a rallying point, a source of inspiration for a weary soldier on a cold night, and a promise of the new nation they were fighting and dying to create. The first attempt to solve this was the Grand Union flag, also known as the Continental Colors. It featured the 13 red and white stripes we know today, representing the United Colonies. But in the Cantandi, upper left corner it had the British Union Jack. This might seem strange to us now, but at the time, it reflected the colonists' complex position. Many still hoped for reconciliation with Great Britain. They were fighting for their rights as Englishmen, not necessarily for a complete break. The Grand Union flag was a step in the right direction. It was raised by Washington's army and flown on the first ships of the Continental Navy. For the first time, a single banner represented all 13 colonies. But as the fight for rights evolved into a fight for independence, the inclusion of the British flag became a contradiction. How could you declare independence while flying the symbol of the very king you were breaking away from? This realization set the stage for the next crucial step. The symbol of hope had to be cleansed of the symbol of oppression. The Continental Congress knew that their symbol of unity needed to be truly their own, born not from British heritage, but from American ideals. They needed a new constellation to guide them, a flag that looked not to the past, but to the bright, uncertain, and thrilling future of a brand new nation. The need was clear, the purpose defined. The stage was set for the birth of the Stars and Stripes. The story of our flag is the story of our country, a journey from a collection of individuals to a unified whole. It's a powerful reminder that symbols matter, that unity is strength, and that a simple piece of cloth can embody the hopes and dreams of a nation. Thanks so much for watching and exploring this piece of history with me. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the history of the American flag. In our last chapter, we explored the seeds of rebellion and the symbols that began to unite the colonists. Today, in Chapter 3, we're diving headfirst into the chaotic, creative, and incredibly diverse world of early revolutionary flags. Before the Stars and Stripes became the official banner in 1777, the battlefields and town squares of the American colonies were a vibrant tapestry of different flags, each with its own story, its own symbolism, and its own declaration of defiance. Think about it. This was a time before a unified national identity had truly solidified. The colonies were still 13 separate entities, each with its own history, its own government, and its own local pride. So, it's no surprise that when the call to arms sounded, they didn't all march under one single banner. Instead, what emerged was a fascinating array of local militia flags, colonial standards, and experimental designs that perfectly reflected the spirit of the time's mix of fierce independence, lingering loyalty, and a growing sense of shared purpose. Let's start with one of the most significant and, perhaps, most confusing flags of the era. The Grand Union flag, also known as the Continental Colors. Picture this. It's January 1st, 1776. General George Washington is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, commanding the newly formed Continental Army. To mark the occasion and to boost morale, he orders a flag to be raised over his headquarters at Prospect Hill. This flag had 13 alternating red and white stripes, just like our flag today, representing the 13 united colonies. But in the Cantanda upper left corner where we now see stars, there was the British Union Jack, the flag of Great Britain. Wait, what? The flag of the very empire they were fighting against. It seems contradictory, but it perfectly captures the complex mindset of many colonists in the early days of the conflict. At this point, the goal for many wasn't outright independence. Instead, they were fighting for their rights as British citizens, protesting against what they saw as unjust taxation and tyrannical rule by Parliament. The Grand Union flag was a symbol of this dual identity. The 13 stripes said, "We are united in our cause," while the Union Jack said, "We are still loyal subjects of the king, and we demand our rights." It was a powerful, if temporary, political statement. This flag was the de facto national flag for about a year and a half, flown by the Continental Army and Navy. It was the first flag to represent all 13 colonies together, a crucial step towards a national symbol, even if it was a transitional one. But while the Grand Union flag flew over military headquarters, on deck ground in the thick of the fighting, the story was far more diverse. Local militias and regiments proudly carried their own unique banners. These weren't mass-produced. They were often handmade by the women of the community, sisters, wives, and mothers sewn. With passion and dedication, these flags were deeply personal and reflected local identities and values. One of the most famous examples is the Join or Die flag, which wasn't even a flag at first. It originated as a political cartoon by Benjamin Franklin in 1754 during the French and Indian War, urging the colonies to unite against the French threat. The image of a snake cut into pieces, each labeled with the initials of a colony, was powerful. The message was clear. If the colonies didn't come together, they would be defeated one by one. By the 1770s, this powerful image was resurrected and emblazoned on banners and flags. It became a potent symbol of colonial unity against British rule, a rallying cry for solidarity. Then you have flags that used other popular symbols of the time. The rattlesnake, for instance, became a particularly American icon. Unlike the animals of Europe, the rattlesnake was unique to the American continent. It was seen as vigilant, never striking without provocation, but deadly when it did. This resonated deeply with the colonists' view of themselves. You've probably heard the famous phrase associated with these flags, "Do we want to tread on me?" This phrase often appeared on flags like the Gadsden flag, which featured a coiled rattlesnake on a bright yellow field. Another version, the First Navy Jack, showed an uncoiled rattlesnake stretched across the 13 red and white stripes. These flags were a bold, unambiguous warning to Great Britain. They conveyed a message of defiance and a readiness to defend their liberties at any cost. Another powerful symbol was the Liberty Tree. The original Liberty Tree was a magnificent elm tree in Boston where colonists first gathered to protest the Stamp Act in 1765. It became a living symbol of resistance. When British soldiers cut it down in 1775, it only amplified its power. The image of a green pine tree, often on a white background, became a common feature on flags, especially those from New England. The most famous of these is the Appeal to Heaven flag. This banner, featuring a solitary pine tree, flew over the first ships of the Continental Navy, commissioned by George Washington himself. The phrase "an appeal to heaven" was a reference to the writings of philosopher John Locke, suggesting that when all other options for justice are exhausted, the only recourse left is to appeal to a higher power and resort to arms. It was a solemn and resolute declaration that they had been pushed to their limit. Let's not forget the variety in design. Some flags were incredibly simple. The Bedford flag, believed to be one of the oldest flags in the United States, is a simple crimson square with an armored arm emerging from a cloud, clutching a sword. It is thought to have been carried by the Bedford Minutemen at the Battle of Concord in 1775. Others, like the flag of the 2nd New Hampshire Regiment, were more elaborate, featuring a golden sunburst and the motto "We are one." The Taunton flag was one of the first to explicitly raise the cry for liberty, featuring the words "Liberty and Union" on a red field. This incredible diversity of flags highlights a key point about the early revolution. It was not a single, monolithic movement. It was a coalition of different groups, different communities, and different colonies, each contributing to the cause in its own way. The man from Massachusetts fighting under a pine tree flag and the Virginian marching with a rattlesnake banner were united in their opposition to British tyranny, even if their symbols were different. This period of flag chaos wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of grassroots passion and widespread commitment. It showed that the revolution was bubbling up from the ground, from countless towns and militias, not just being dictated from the top down. This era of symbolic experimentation was absolutely essential. It was a period of brainstorming, of throwing ideas against the wall to see what would stick. Through these varied and vibrant banners, The colonists were actively defining who they were and what they were fighting for. They were moving away from their identity as British subjects and forging a new one, an American identity. Each flag was a brushstroke in the larger portrait of a new nation being born. As the war progressed, the need for a single, unifying national symbol became more and more apparent. A unified flag would not only represent the colonies on the international stage, but would also serve as a standardized banner for the Continental Army, eliminating confusion on the battlefield. The Grand Union flag was a good start, but its inclusion of the Union Jack was becoming increasingly problematic as the sentiment for full independence grew. The stage was set for the next, most decisive step in the flag's evil. So, join us next time in Chapter 4, as we witness the birth of a new constellation and the creation of the first official American flag, the Stars and Stripes. We'll explore the famous flag resolution of 1777 and delve into the myths and realities surrounding its design. It's a story you won't want to miss. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this series, please consider liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our Flagest incredible story. We'll see you next time. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the history of the American flag. In our last chapter, we explored the early, unofficial banners of rebellion. Today, we're rediving into Chapter 4 to discuss the very first semi-official flag of the United Colonies, the Grand Union flag. Picture this. It's late 1775. The Continental Army has been formed, and George Washington is in command. The colonies are united in their fight against British policies, but they haven't yet declared full independence. They needed a symbol, a banner that represented their unity, while still acknowledging their ties to the British crown, which many still hope to reconcile with. Enter the Grand Union flag, also known as the Continental colors. It was a brilliant, if temporary, solution. This flag featured the familiar 13 alternating red and white stripes, just like our flag today. These stripes represented the 13 colonies, united in their cause. But in the canton that's the upper left corner, it didn't have stars. Instead, it had the British Union Jack, the flag of Great Britain. This design was clever. The stripes shouted colonial unity, while the Union Jack said, "We are still loyal subjects of the king, but we demand our rights as Englishmen." It was a flag of protest, not of outright separation. It perfectly captured the political sentiment of that specific moment in time. General Washington himself reportedly hoisted this flag on Prospect Hill, near his headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts, on January 1st, 1776. This act marked the official formation of the Continental Army. It was a powerful moment. Imagine the soldiers seeing this new banner unfurl against the winter sky. It symbolized their shared struggle and gave them a tangible identity beyond their individual colonial militias. For the first time, they were fighting under one unified flag. The Grand Union flag was used by the Continental Army and Navy for about a year and a half. It flew over forts, was carried into skirmishes, and sailed on the high seas aboard the first ships of the Continental Navy. It was the flag that represented America in the crucial early stages of the Revolutionary War, the period when the final, irreversible break was being debated. But as you know, history was moving fast. The political ground was shifting beneath everyone's feet. Thomas Paine's Common Sense was published in early 1776, passionately arguing for a complete break from Britain. The idea of independence, once a radical notion, quickly gained widespread support, and then came the moment that changed everything. July 4th, 1776. The Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. The ties were officially severed. The colonies were no longer colonies. They were free and independent states. Suddenly, the Grand Union flag had a major problem. Think about it. How could a new nation, forged in a struggle for freedom from Great Britain, continue to fly a flag that prominently featured the symbol of its former ruler? It was a contradiction. Flying the Union Jack was no longer a sign of hopeful reconciliation. It was a symbol of the very power they had just declared their independence from. It would be like sending a breakup text but keeping your excess photo as your phone's wallpaper. It just didn't work. The flag had become obsolete overnight. The stripes still represented the states perfectly, but the canton, The Union Jack had to go. A new symbol was needed, one that represented a new constellation of states, a government without a king, a nation born from revolution. And that necessity, the need for a new symbol to replace the Union Jack, sets the stage perfectly for our next chapter. What would replace the symbol of the British crown? What design would truly represent the United States of America? The answer, of course, lies in the stars. So, the Grand Union flag, while short-lived, was an essential stepping stone. It was the bridge between the scattered banners of protests and the official flag of a new nation. It represents that final, tense period before independence, a time of unified colonial defiance that paved the way for the birth of a country. It's a crucial and often overlooked piece of our vexillological puzzle. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter. The story of the flag is the story of America itself, evolving and changing with the times. If you're enjoying this series, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss Chapter 5, where we'll witness the birth of the Stars and Stripes. We'll see you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most enduring and beloved stories in American history. A tale of patriotism, craftsmanship, and a single Philadelphia seamstress who would become a national icon. We're talking about the legendary Betsy Ross and the creation of the very first American flag. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it. The birth of a nation. The air thick with revolution and the promise of a new future. At the heart of this story is a young upholsterer named Elizabeth Griscom, better known to us as Betsy Ross. The legend, as it has been passed down through generations, is as powerful as it is picturesque. As the story goes, in the late spring of 1776, just as the colonies were on the brink of declaring independence, 3 distinguished gentlemen paid a visit to Betsy's upholstery shop on Art Street in Philadelphia. These weren't just any visitors. They were General George Washington himself, the commander of the Continental Army, Robert Morris, a wealthy financier of the Revolution, and George Ross, a respected signer of the Declaration of Independence, and incidentally, the uncle of Betsy's late husband. They came with a special, top-secret mission. They carried a rough sketch of a new flag, one that would represent the United Colonies in their fight for freedom. The design featured 13 red and white stripes, representing the 13 colonies, and a blue field in the corner with 13 stars, also for the colonies. It was a symbol of unity, a banner for a new nation to rally behind. Now, Betsy was known throughout Philadelphia for her exceptional skill with a needle and thread. She wasn't just a seamstress. She was a master craftswoman. But according to the legend, she didn't just accept the design as it was presented. An astute and practical woman, she had a suggestion. The original sketch showed stars with 6 points. Betsy, with the efficiency of a true professional, argued that a 5-pointed star was not only more aesthetically pleasing but also much easier and faster to cut. To prove her point, she is said to have taken a piece of paper, folded it deftly, and with a single snip of her scissors, produced a perfect 5-pointed star. Washington and the committee were reportedly so impressed by her demonstration and her keen eye for design that they immediately agreed to the change. They entrusted her with the monumental task of creating the first flag of the United States, working in secret, often late into the night. By candlelight, Betsy Ross is said to have painstakingly sewn together the red, white, and blue fabrics. Can you imagine the weight of that task? Stitching not just cloth, but the very hopes and dreams of a fledgling nation into existence. The result was the glorious Stars and Stripes, the Grand Union flag, which would first be officially adopted by the Continental Congress on June 14th, 1777. That's why we celebrate Flag Day on June 14th every year. This story is powerful. It's a story of a capable, independent woman contributing directly to the birth of her country. It transforms the flag from a mere government decree into a handcrafted symbol of American ingenuity and spirit. It's a story that has been told in classrooms, featured in paintings, and celebrated for over a century. But here's where history gets a little more complex. While we love the story of Betsy Ross, it's important for us, as lovers of history, to acknowledge that the historical evidence for this specific event is, well, it's thin. There are no official government records, no letters from George Washington, No diary entries from 1776 that confirm this meeting ever took place. The story, in fact, didn't become widely known until nearly 100 years later. It was in 1870 that Betsy's grandson, William Canby, first presented the story to the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. He shared sworn affidavits from his aunt, grandmother, and other family members who recalled hearing Betsy tell the tale herself many times. According to Canby, his grandmother was a humble woman who didn't seek fame for her contribution, but privately shared the story of her famous visitors and her role in designing the flag. So, what do historians think? Most historians today view the story as a piece of cherished folklore rather than established historical fact. They point out that in 1776, there wasn't really a single national flag. Various regiments and ships flew different designs. The famous Betsy Ross design with T-13 stars in a circle was just one of several versions in use. Some evidence suggests that Francis Hopkinson, a signer of the Declaration of Independence and a delegate from New Jersey, was more likely the official designer of the flag, as he later submitted a bill to Congress for his design work. Congress, however, declined to pay him in full, arguing he wasn't the only one who contributed. This debate, however, doesn't necessarily diminish Betsy Ross's importance. Not at all. What we know for sure is that Betsy Ross was a real person, a patriot, and a flag maker. We have receipts showing that the Pennsylvania State Navy Board paid her a significant sum of money for sewing Ship S colors in 1777. So, whether she sewed that very first flag for Washington or not, she was absolutely involved in making early American flags. She was a businesswoman, a widow who supported her family through her craft during a tumultuous and dangerous time. She represents the countless everyday citizens, the artisans, the women, whose contributions were essential to the success of the Revolution, even if their names weren't all recorded in official documents. So, how should we remember Betsy Ross? Perhaps the best way is to embrace both the legend and the history. The story of her meeting with Washington may be a legend, but it is a legend that speaks to a deeper truth about the American character, a belief in individual contribution, practical ingenuity, and the idea that anyone, from a general to a seamstress, can play a role in shaping the nation's destiny. The legend gave the country a female founder, a heroine at a time when women's contributions were often overlooked. It created a tangible, personal connection to the nation's most sacred symbol. Betsy Ross, the historical figure, was a resilient and patriotic craftswoman. Betsy Ross, the legend, is an icon of American folklore who embodies the spirit of the Revolution. Both are worth remembering and celebrating. Her story, whether fact or folklore, has become woven into the fabric of American identity, just as she so skillfully wove together the red, white, and blue. What do you think? Does it matter if the story is a legend? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Thanks so much for watching today. If you enjoyed this journey into American history, please give this video a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. Until next time, stay curious. Hello, history buffs and curious minds. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we re-diving deep into a number that is woven right into the fabric of American identity. The number Have you ever looked at the US flag and wondered about the story behind its design? Why 13 stripes? Why were there originally 13 stars? It's not just a random number. It's a powerful symbol that tells the story of a nation's birth. Let's start with the most obvious connection. The 13 original colonies. These were the British colonies in North America that declared independence in 1776, sparking the American Revolution. They were Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maryland, South Carolina, New Hampshire, Virginia, New York, North Carolina, and Rhode Island. Each stripe on the flag, alternating between red and white, represents one of these foundational colonies. It's a visual roll call of the states that dared to dream of a new future. The red, they say, symbolizes hardiness and valor, the courage it took to fight for freedom. The white stands for purity and innocence, the ideals upon which the new nation was being built. So, when you see those 13 stripes, you're looking at a tribute to the bravery and vision of those very first states. They are the bedrock of the United States. But the story doesn't end with the stripes. Let's look up at that blue rectangle in the corner, known as the canton, or the Union. In the first official flag, the Stars and Stripes adopted on June 14, 1777. This blue field held a constellation of 13 stars. This was a radical idea for the time. A star, a celestial body, was chosen to represent each state. It was a poetic way of saying that each state was a sovereign entity, a shining light in its own right, yet part of a greater cosmic arrangement. The arrangement of these stars was significant, too. The Continental Congress's flag resolution didn't specify a particular pattern, just that there should be a new constellation. Early flags saw stars arranged in various ways, but the most famous early design is the Betsy Ross flag, with the 13 stars arranged in a perfect circle. This circular pattern was a brilliant piece of symbolism. In a circle, there is no beginning and no end. No single star is more prominent than another. This represented the idea of equality and perpetual unity among the states. Each state, regardless of its size or population, was an equal partner in this new venture. This concept of unity was paramount. The colonies were incredibly diverse, with different economies, cultures, and priorities. Bringing them together under a single banner was a monumental achievement. The number 13, therefore, became more than just a count of colonies. It became the very symbol of their union. It was a declaration to the world that these 13 distinct entities were now one, bound together in a common cause. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. This famous motto is perfectly captured by the 13 stars and 13 stripes. As the nation grew, a challenge arose. New states began to join the Union. What would happen to the flag? For a time, both a star and a stripe were added for each new state. By 1795, with the admission of Vermont and Kentucky, the flag had 15 stars and 15 stripes. This was the very flag that flew over Fort McHenry during the War of 1812 and inspired Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner. However, it soon became clear that adding a new stripe for every new state would make the flag unwieldy and visually cluttered. Imagine a flag with 50 stripes today. So, in 1818, Congress passed the Flag Act, which returned the design to the original 13 stripes, forever honoring the founding colonies. From then on, only a star would be added to the canton for each new state. This was a brilliant compromise, preserving the tribute to the original 13 while allowing the flag to evolve with the growing nation. So, the 13 stripes remain a permanent fixture, a constant reminder of where the country began. They ground the nation in its history, reminding everyone of the original 13 states that took that incredible leap of faith. The stars, now numbering 50, represent the present, showing the nation's growth and current makeup. The flag is a living document, a timeline written in fabric. The number 13 in American symbolism goes even beyond the flag. Think about the Great Seal of the United States. On it, you'll find an eagle holding an olive branch with 13 leaves and 13 olives, symbolizing peace. In its other talon, it holds 13 arrows, symbolizing the strength to defend that peace. Above the eagle's head are 13 stars in a constellation. The shield on the eagle's chest has 13 stripes. The motto E pluribus unum itself has 13 letters. It's everywhere. This consistent use of the number 13 across foundational American symbols reinforces its importance. It wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate design choice. The founders were sending a clear message about the origins and ideals of the new republic. They were creating a new political vocabulary, and the number 13 was a key term, representing unity, equality, and the nation's revolutionary beginnings. So, the next time you see the American flag, take a closer look. Don't just see a piece of cloth. See a story. See the courage of 13 colonies represented by the stripes. See the ideal of an equal and perpetual union in the original 13 stars. The design is a masterclass in symbolism, embedding the nation's founding principles into an image that is recognized all over the world. It's a powerful reminder that out of many, one nation was born, built on the foundation of 13 brave states. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history and design. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We love hearing from you, so leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the story of the American flag. Today, we arrive at a pivotal moment, a turning point that gave a young nation its most enduring symbol. We're in Chapter 7, exploring the monumental resolution of June 14th, 1777. Picture this. It's the summer of 1777. The American Revolution is in full swing. The 13 colonies, now self-proclaimed states, are fighting for their very existence against the might of the British Empire. The Continental Congress, the governing body of this fledgling nation, is meeting in Philadelphia. They're dealing with everything from funding the war to appointing generals. Yet amidst the chaos and urgency of war, they took a moment to do something profoundly significant, something that would echo through centuries. Before this moment, American forces fought under a variety of banners. You had the Grand Union flag, with its British Union Jack in the corner, a symbol of a past they were actively rejecting. There were state flags, militia flags, even flags with coiled rattlesnakes warning, "Don't tread on me." It was a patchwork of symbols for a patchwork of colonies, united in cause but not yet in identity. A unified national emblem was desperately needed. It was a matter of morale, of international recognition, and of forging a single identity from 30 disparate parts. So, on June 14th, 1777, the delegates of the Second Continental Congress put forth a resolution. The official record is brief, almost deceptively simple for a decision of such magnitude. There was no grand, flowery speech recorded, no lengthy debate noted in the journals. It was a straightforward, practical piece of legislative business. But the words themselves were revolutionary. Let's read the exact text from the journals of the Continental Congress. It says, "Resolved that the flag of the 30 United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation." Let's break that down because every single word is packed with meaning. First, resolved that the flag of the 13 United States, ... This is the key. It's not the flag of the Continental Army or the flag of a specific region. It is the flag of the asterisk, United States asterisk. This is a declaration of singular nationhood. They were no longer just a coalition of colonies. They were a country, and this was to be its banner. Next, the 13 stripes, alternate red and white ... The 13 stripes were a direct nod to the 13 founding colonies, the original states that dared to declare independence, red and white. While the resolution itself doesn't assign specific meanings, these colors were familiar. They were present in the British Red Ensign and the Grand Union flag. But here, they were repurposed. Over time, these colors would come to symbolize deeper values. Charles Thomson, the Secretary of the Continental Congress, would later describe the colors of the Great Seal of the United States, and these interpretations are often applied to the flag as well. White for purity and innocence, red for hardiness and valor. These stripes represented the strength and sacrifice of the 13 states, standing shoulder to shoulder. Then we have the most poetic part of the resolution, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation. This is just beautiful imagery. The Union, this refers to the canton, the upper inner corner of the flag. This blue field, which would come to symbolize vigilance, perseverance, and justice, was to contain 13 white stars. Why stars? Stars are symbols of the heavens, of divine providence, of eternity. But the text gives us the explicit meaning, representing a new constellation. This wasn't just a collection of stars. It was a new formation in the political heavens, a new nation, a new republic, taking its place among the old powers of the world. Just as a new constellation takes its place in the night sky, each star represented a state, equal and sovereign, yet bound together in this new celestial body, this new union. The circular arrangement, which became a popular early design, further emphasized the idea of equality and perpetuity, with no state having precedence over another. And so, with that short, concise resolution, the Stars and Stripes, was born. It's fascinating that such a powerful symbol emerged from such a simple, unadorned legislative act. There was no fanfare, no public announcement ceremony. The resolution was simply passed and entered into the record. Its adoption was so quiet that many people, even within the military, didn't learn about the new official flag for months. It's important to understand that this resolution was a starting point, not an ending. It laid out the essential elements, stripes and stars, but it didn't specify the arrangement of the stars, the number of points on each star, or the flag's exact proportions. This led to a wonderful period of creative interpretation. You had flags with stars in a circle, in rows, or even in a star-shaped pattern. This ambiguity allowed the flag to be a living, evolving symbol right from its inception. The resolution of June 14, 1777, was more than just a design choice. It was a profound act of national self. In the midst of a desperate war, it was a bold, optimistic statement about the future. It was a promise of a new kind of nation, a republic built on the idea of unity and shared destiny. This wasn't just a battle flag. It was the birth certificate of a national icon. And that to June 14th, is one we still celebrate every year in the United States as Flag Day, a direct legacy of this quiet, yet world-changing resolution passed in Philadelphia. It's a day to remember that our greatest symbols often come not from grand pronouncements, but from the steady, determined work of building a nation. Thank you so much for joining me on this chapter of our journey. The story of how this design went from a resolution on paper to an icon recognized around the globe is full of fascinating tales, and we'll get into those next. If you're enjoying this series, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into something we see almost every day but might not think about too much: the powerful symbolism behind the colors of the American flag. This is Chapter 8 of Or Series, the meaning of the colors. What do red, white, and blue truly represent? And how did these specific shades become so deeply woven into the fabric of American identity? Let's unravel this vibrant history together. When you look at Old Glory waving in the breeze, you're not just seeing a piece of cloth. You're seeing a story told in color. Let's start with red. Think about the passion, the fire, the lifeblood of a nation. In the context of the flag, red stands for hardiness and valor. It symbolizes the courage of the men and women who fought for the nation's independence and those who continue to defend its freedoms today. It's a bold, strong color, reflecting the spirit and resilience required to build and sustain a country. It's the color of bravery, a tribute to the sacrifices made throughout American history. Next, we have white. White is often associated with light, goodness, and a clean slate. On the American flag, white signifies purity and innocence. Now, this doesn't mean a naive or simplistic innocence. Instead, it points to the purity of the ideals upon which the nation was founded, the revolutionary concepts of liberty, equality, and the pursuit of happiness. It represents a commitment to high ideals and a moral compass guiding the nation. It's a call to live up to the pure, unblemished principles that form the very foundation of the American experiment. It's an aspirational color, reminding us of the clean and noble goals the country strives for. And finally, we have blue. The broad field of blue behind the stars is a color of depth and stability. It represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Think of the vastness of the sky or the deep sea. This color suggests a watchful, steadfast presence. It's the color of determination, a symbol of the nation's resolve to remain strong and united. The blue canton, where the stars reside, is called the Union. This isn't a coincidence. It symbolizes a new constellation, a new political entity formed from the union of the states. The blue is the glue holding that union together, representing the justice and perseverance needed to maintain it. But where did this specific color combination come from? Truth is, the Continental Congress didn't officially assign these meanings when they adopted the flag in 1777. The symbolism we cherish today was actually articulated later. In 1782, when the Great Seal of the United States was designed, Charles Thomson, the Secretary of the Continental Congress, explained the color symbolism for the seal. He stated, The colors of the pales are those used in the flag of the United States of America. White signifies purity and innocence. Red, hardiness and valor. And blue signifies vigilance, perseverance, and justice. These meanings, originally attached to the Great Seal, were quickly and naturally adopted for the flag as well. It made perfect sense. The flag and the seal were two sides of the same coin, representing the authority and ideals of the new republic. The colors weren't just decorative. They were a declaration of national character. They communicated to the world what America stood for. This connection was so strong that over time, the symbolism became inseparable from the flag itself. So, how did these colors become so tied to American identity? It's a process that happened over generations. As the flag was raised over forts, carried into battles, and flown from homes, the stories and emotions of those moments became intertwined with its colors. The red wasn't just valor in theory. It was the bravery seen at Fort McHenry. The white wasn't just pure ideals. It was the hope for a fresh start for millions of immigrants. The blue wasn't just vigilance. It was the steady resolve of a nation facing immense challenges, from civil war to world wars. Every time the flag is saluted, every time the national anthem is sung, these colors are reinforced as symbols of the American experience. They are present at solemn ceremonies and joyous celebrations. They are a constant visual reminder of the nation's history, its struggles, and its triumphs. The colors themselves have become a shorthand for patriotism and national pride. When you see a red, white, and blue pattern, even outside the context of the flag, it instantly evokes a sense of America. Think about political campaigns, sporting events, and national holidays like the 4th of July. The entire visual landscape is painted in red, white, and blue. This constant repetition embeds the colors deep within the collective consciousness, making them an unmistakable part of the national identity. They are more than just hues on a spectrum. They are carriers of memory, emotion, and aspiration. They tell the story of a nation striving to live up to its founding principles of courage, purity, and vigilance. And that's the beautiful story behind the colors of the American flag. They are a testament to the nation's past and a beacon for its future. So the next time you see those stars and stripes, take a moment to think about the powerful meanings woven into every thread. It's a rich tapestry of courage, ideals, and enduring strength. Thank you so much for joining me on this colorful journey through American history. If you found this interesting, please give this video a thumbs up. And do you won't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We love hearing from you, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through history. Today, we re-diving into one of the most thrilling chapters of the American story. The very first time the stars and stripes were flown. Imagine the scene. The ink is barely dry on the flag resolution of 1777, and a new nation is desperate for a symbol of unity and defiance. So, where did this fledgling banner first catch the wind? The story is filled with a mix of legend and documented fact, and it's a tale that unfolds across land and sea. Many historical accounts point to the sea as the flag's first theater. Picture this. The Continental Navy, a scrappy but determined force, taking on the most powerful navy in the world. Captain John Paul Jones, a name that would become legendary, is often credited with one of the earliest hoistings. It's said that he raised the stars and stripes aboard his ship, the sloop of war, Ranger in Portsmouth Harbor, New Hampshire, shortly after the Flag Act was passed. This act wasn't just about decoration. It was a bold declaration. Every time that flag went up the mast, it was a direct challenge to the British Royal Navy, a signal that these weren't just colonial ships anymore. They belonged to the United States of America. On February 14, 1778, came a moment of incredible international significance. John Paul Jones, now in French waters aboard the Ranger exchanged salutes with a French fleet. When the French admiral saluted the stars and stripes, it marked the first time a foreign power officially recognized the American flag, and by extension, the new nation it represented. This was more than just a naval formality. It was a diplomatic victory, a sign that America wasn't standing entirely alone. It was a powerful boost to morale, proving that the struggle for independence was being taken seriously on the world stage. But the flag's story isn't just one of naval parades. It was forged in the heat of battle. The first time the Stars and Stripes is widely believed to have flown in combat on land was during the siege of Fort Schuyler, also known as Fort Stanwix, in New York in August of 1777. The fort was under attack by British forces. The soldiers inside, cut off and outnumbered, were in a dire situation. But they were resolute. They needed a flag. According to the journals of those present, they improvised. They needed red, white, and blue. So, they reportedly cut up soldiers' white shirts for the stars and white stripes, used red flannel from women's petticoats for the red stripes, and stitched it all onto a field of blue cut from a captain's coat. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't a pristine, factory-made flag. This was a symbol born of pure necessity and defiance, stitched together from the very clothes off their backs. On August 3rd, 1777, they raised this makeshift banner over the fort. For the next 21 days, as cannonballs flew and the siege raged on, that flag flew as a symbol of their unwavering resolve. They refused to surrender. Ultimately, the British siege was lifted, and Fort Schuyler held. The story of its flag became a powerful legend of American grit and ingenuity. While some details are debated by historians, the core of the story that a flag was hastily created and flown in defiance captures the spirit of the revolution perfectly. The flag also saw action in major battles that turned the tide of the war. Take the Battle of Brandywine in September 1777. This was a massive, brutal engagement, and General Washington's Continental Army was there. Eyewitness accounts, including those from a Hessian officer fighting with the British, described seeing the distinctive flag with its stars and stripes flying above the American lines. Though the battle itself was a tactical loss for the Americans, the flag's presence was significant. It unified the various state militias and Continental regulars under one banner. It was a visual reminder that they were no longer just Pennsylvanians or Virginians fighting for their home states. They were Americans, fighting for a shared cause under a single national emblem. Then came the pivotal Battle of Saratoga a month later. This was the turning point of the war. A stunning American victory that convinced France to formally enter the war as an ally. And there, flying over the American fortifications and carried into the fray, was the Stars and Stripes. Imagine the sight. Soldiers, fresh from a victory that would change the course of world history, looking up to see their new national flag waving against the autumn sky. It was no longer just a concept passed by Congress. It was a battle-tested emblem of victory. It represented the blood, sweat, and sacrifice that had secured that crucial win. As the war progressed, the flag became a more common sight. It was flown over military encampments, like the one at Valley Forge during the harsh winter of 1777 to 1778. There, amidst suffering and hardship, the flag served as a constant, tangible reminder of the cause for which they were enduring so much. It flew from the masts of privateer ships, the daring sea raiders who harassed British shipping and commerce, bringing the war to England's economic doorstep. Every capture made under that flag was a blow to the British war effort. From the decks of naval ships challenging the world's greatest maritime power, to the makeshift ramparts of a besieged fort, to the smoke-filled fields of Brandywine and Saratoga, the Stars and Stripes was there from the beginning. It wasn't just raised, it was Arned. Each location tells a part of the story, a story of courage, of ingenuity, and of a people determined to forge a new identity. The first flags flown were more than just cloth and thread. They were the embodiment of an idea, a promise of a new nation, consecrated in conflict and raised in hope. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into our history. If you have found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the story of the American flag. Last time, we explored its creation, a symbol born from revolution. Today, we're diving into Chapter 10, the flag's early battles. We'll see how this new banner went from a simple piece of cloth to a powerful emblem forged in the heat of conflict. So, where did the Stars and Stripes first fly in battle? The exact first instance is a bit hazy, a puzzle lost to the fog of war. But one of the most significant early appearances was at the Battle of Brandywine on September 11, 1777. Imagine the scene. General Washington's Continental Army, outnumbered and outgunned, facing the might of the British under General Howe. It was a brutal, sprawling battle, a desperate attempt to stop the British from capturing Philadelphia, the revolutionary capital. Amidst the chaos, the smoke, and the roar of cannons, the new American flag was there. For many soldiers, this was the first time they had seen it in combat. It wasn't just a marker for their regiments. It was a visual representation of the very independence they were fighting for. Though the battle was a strategic loss for the Americans, the flag's presence was a profound statement. It flew in defiance, a symbol of a nation that refused to surrender its dream, even in retreat. Brandywine tested the Army's resolve, and the flag became a rallying point for a fight that was far from over. Just a few weeks later, the tide would turn dramatically at the battles of Saratoga in upstate New York. This campaign was a crucial turning point in the entire war. The British had a grand plan to split the colonies in two, but the American forces, under generals like Horatio Gates and the fiery Benedict Arnold, were determined to stop them. Here, the Stars and Stripes flew over fortifications and battle lines, witnessing a stunning American victory. The surrender of British General John Burgoyne and his entire army at Saratoga on October 17, 1777, was a monumental achievement. When the British laid down their arms, they did so under the watchful eyes of the American flag. This victory was more than just a military success. It sent shockwaves across the Atlantic. It convinced France, a global superpower at the time, that the American cause was viable. Soon after, France officially recognized the United States and entered the war as its ally. The flag at Saratoga wasn't just a battle standard. It became a diplomatic symbol, a banner that represented a new, legitimate nation on the world stage. But the war wasn't just fought on land. The high seas were a critical theater of war, and here the flag found a new kind of home aboard the ships of the Continental Navy and, perhaps more famously, on the masts of American privateers. Privateers were privately owned ships, authorized by the government to attack enemy merchant vessels. They were the swashbuckling high-stakes players of the Revolution. Captains like John Paul Jones became legends. When Jones sailed his ship, the Ranger, into a French port in 1778, flying the Stars and Stripes, he received the first official salute to the American flag from a foreign naval vessel. It was a huge moment of international recognition. Later, during his legendary battle aboard the Bonhomme Richard, when asked if he was surrendered, Jones famously declared, "I have not yet begun to fight." All the while, the American flag flew defiantly, torn and tattered by cannon fire, but never lowered and surrendered. On these ships, the flag was a declaration of identity on the open ocean. It told every other vessel on the sea, friend or foe, this was an American ship, representing a new nation willing to fight for its rights and its commerce. For the sailors, many of whom were far from home, seeing that flag snap in the wind was a constant, powerful reminder of what they were fighting for. It was a piece of home, a symbol of the liberty that awaited them if they could win this desperate war. From the muddy fields of Brandywine to the decisive triumph at Saratoga, and across the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, the Stars and Stripes was christened by fire. It absorbed the hopes, fears, and sacrifices of the men and women of the Revolution. It wasn't just present at these battles. It was an active participant, a source of inspiration, and a testament to the unyielding spirit of a new nation. Each battle added a new layer of meaning to its fabric, transforming it from a mere design into the very soul of America. Thanks so much for joining me on this historical deep dive. It's truly amazing to see how the flag earned its stripes, literally and figuratively. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to have you back as we continue to unfurl the story of the American flag. See you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the symbols that have shaped history. Today, we're tackling a design so iconic, so immediately recognizable, that it's almost become a myth in itself. We're talking about Chapter 11. The Stars in a Circle. When you picture the first American flag, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's that beautiful, elegant ring of 13 white stars set against a deep blue canton. This design, often called the Betsy Ross flag, is more than just a pretty pattern. It's a powerful statement, a visual declaration of a revolutionary new idea. Let's step back into the late 18th century. The 13 colonies were on the brink of becoming 13 states. They were a diverse group from the bustling ports of Massachusetts to the sprawling farmlands of Virginia. Each had its own history, its own economy, and its own unique identity. Forging them into a single, unified nation was one of the greatest challenges the founders faced. How do you convince 13 distinct entities, each proud and protective of its own sovereignty, to join together as equals? This is where the genius of the circular star pattern comes in. Think about a circle. It has no beginning and no end. Every point on its circumference is equidistant from the center. There is no top, no bottom, no first, and no last. When you arrange 13 stars in this formation, you're making a profound political statement. You're saying that Virginia is no more important than Rhode Island. New York has no precedence over Delaware. Each state, represented by a star, holds an equal position within this new constellation, this new union. The design was a deliberate rejection of the hierarchical structures of the old world. In the monarchies of Europe, power flowed from the top down. There was a clear and rigid order, with the king at the pinnacle and everyone else arranged in descending levels of importance. The American experiment was designed to be different. It was founded on the principle of a union of equals. The circular arrangement of stars perfectly captured this ideal. It was a visual promise that in this new nation, no single state would dominate the others. They would be a brotherhood of states, linked together in a continuous, unbroken chain of mutual respect and shared governance. Now, the story of Betsy Ross herself is a fascinating piece of American folklore. The tale goes that in 1776, George Washington, Robert Morris, and George Ross visited her upholstery shop in Philadelphia with a rough sketch of a flag. The original design supposedly had 6 pointed stars, but Betsy, a skilled seamstress, demonstrated how a 5-pointed star could be cut with a single snip of the scissors, making the process much more efficient. While concrete historical evidence directly linking Ross to the first flag is debated by historians, her story has become an enduring part of American culture. It represents the contribution of ordinary citizens, the artisans and craftspeople, in building the nation. The legend itself reinforces the idea that the Republic was built not just by famous generals and politicians, but by the hands of all its people. But regardless of who precisely stitched the first one, the design's power remains undeniable. The circular pattern was one of several early star arrangements. Some flags featured stars in rows, which was also a common design. However, the circle had a unique and compelling symbolism that resonated deeply with the revolutionary spirit. It was simple, it was elegant, and its meaning was unmistakable. It represented unity, equality, and perpetuity and endless union. This concept of equality among the states was absolutely critical. The founders knew that if any one state or region felt marginalized or less important, the fragile new union could easily fracture. They had just fought a war to escape the tyranny of a distant, centralized power. The last thing they wanted was to create a new system where one state could impose its will upon another. The flag's design served as a constant, visible reminder of this foundational principle. Every time it was raised, it declared to the world that these United States were a partnership, not a hierarchy. Think about the psychological impact of this design. Imagine being a soldier in the Continental Army, far from home, facing incredible hardship. You look up and see this banner. It doesn't just represent America. It represents Asterisk, your asterisk state, standing shoulder to shoulder with 12 others, all equal, all committed to the same cause. It's a symbol of shared sacrifice and shared destiny. It's a promise that your home, your community, your state, has an equal voice in the grand project of building a new nation. The design also speaks to the idea of a new constellation in the heavens, a phrase used in the 1777 flag resolution. A new nation was appearing on the world stage, just as a new constellation of stars appears in the sky. This celestial metaphor elevated the American project beyond mere earthly politics. It was something new, something guided by higher principles, a beacon of light and liberty for the world to see. The circular pattern, like a celestial orbit, suggested harmony, balance, and a natural, divinely inspired order. Over time, as new states were added to the Union, the circular pattern became impractical to maintain. The flag evolved, with stars being arranged in rows to accommodate the growing number of states. Today, our flag has 50 stars in a neat, orderly grid, but the legacy of that first circle of 13 remains deeply embedded in our national identity. It is a design that continues to capture our imagination because it represents the purest form of the American ideal. E pluribus unum out of many, one, but not just one, a unified whole comprised of equal, respected parts. That Betsy Ross pattern is more than just an antique design. It's the original visual mission statement of the United States. It is a beautiful and powerful reminder that our nation was founded on the radical idea that a union could be forged not through dominance and submission, but through a circle of equals, bound together in common purpose. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into our nation's symbols. It's a story full of meaning and inspiration. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And do you and F forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you will know as our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through history. Today, we're diving into a truly pivotal moment, not just for a piece of cloth, but for the birth of a nation. We've talked about how the Stars and Stripes was born, but how did it go from a domestic symbol to a banner recognized on the world stage? This is the story of how the American flag became a declaration of independence in the eyes of the world. Imagine this. It's the late 1770s. The American Revolution is raging. To the British, the colonists are rebels, their flag a mere rag of sedition. But across the Atlantic, in the grand courts of Europe, a different game is being played. The fledgling United States desperately needs allies, money, and weapons. To get them, they need to be seen not as a splinter group of insurgents, but as a legitimate, sovereign nation. And what's the most visible symbol of a sovereign nation? Its flag. Enter Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and the other American diplomats in Paris. Their mission was monumental. Convince France, a global superpower and Britain's age-old rival, to officially recognize and support the United States. This wasn't just about military strategy. It was about perception. They needed to sell the idea of America. Every letter they wrote, every meeting they took, was a step towards building this new identity. And then, the flag arrives. When American ships, flying the Stars and Stripes, first sailed into French ports, it was a moment of electric tension. Were these pirates, rebels? Or were they representatives of a new power? The French authorities had a choice to make. Each time a French official recognized that flag with a cannon salute, it was a small but profound victory. It was a diplomatic nod, an acknowledgement that this banner represented something real, something more than just a rebellion. The turning point, of course, was the American victory at the Battle of Saratoga in October 1777. This stunning success proved to the French that the Americans were not just a ragtag militia. They had the will and the capability to win. The news electrified Paris and gave Franklin the leverage he needed. The debate in the French court intensified. Supporting the Americans meant risking a costly war with Britain, but it also offered a golden opportunity to weaken their greatest adversary. For the French, the American flag began to symbolize more than just a new country. It represented the Enlightenment ideals they themselves championed. Liberty, republicanism, and the rights of man. Philosophers and intellectuals in Parisian salons celebrated the American cause. The Stars and Stripes wasn't just another national emblem. It was the banner of a grand experiment in self-governance, a beacon of hope for a new kind of world. Finally, on February 6, 1778, the deal was done. France and the United States signed the Treaty of Alliance and the Treaty of Amity and Commerce. This was it, the moment of official recognition. From that day forward, the Stars and Stripes was no longer the flag of rebels in the eyes of one of the world's most powerful nations. It was the flag of an independent country, an equal partner on the international stage. This French alliance was the game changer. It brought the full might of the French Navy, seasoned troops, and crucial financial backing into the war. when French ships sailed alongside American vessels, both flying their respective flags. It was a powerful visual statement of solidarity. The Stars and Stripes, once a lonely symbol of defiance, now flew in a fleet of allies. Think about the naval hero John Paul Jones. When he sailed the Ship Ranger into Quiberon Bay, France, in 1778, he sought and received a formal 9-gun salute from the French admiral. This was the first time the flag was officially saluted by a foreign naval power, a huge diplomatic milestone. It was a public declaration to the entire world that the United States of America and its flag were here to stay. John Paul Jones later wrote that he was happy in having it in my power to do the flag of America so much honor at the court of France. He understood the immense symbolic power of that moment. So, when we look at the Stars and Stripes, we're not just seeing a symbol of the 13 colonies. We're seeing a banner that crossed an ocean and won the respect of the world. It was a diplomatic tool, a symbol of shared ideals, and a declaration of sovereignty that echoed from the battlefields of America to the palaces of Europe. The recognition by France, sealed with treaties and cannon salutes, transformed the flag. It became an international emblem of a new nation, forged in revolution and legitimized on the world stage. This chapter in the flag's history reminds us that independence isn't just declared. It has to be earned and, crucially, recognized by others. The Stars and Stripes played a starring role in that diplomatic drama, proving that sometimes a symbol can be just as powerful as an army. Thanks so much for watching this chapter of our story. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode. We love hearing from you, so leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Upbeat, inspiring music begins and then fades to a gentle, thoughtful underscore. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through history. Today, we're diving into a truly moving chapter, one that explores how a simple piece of cloth became a powerful symbol of unity for a burgeoning nation. We're talking about the American flag, and how it transformed into a sacred emblem that brought together people from all walks of life. Imagine the early days of the United States. It was a time of immense change and uncertainty. The nation was a patchwork of different states, cultures, and beliefs. You had wealthy merchants in the north, hard-working farmers in the south, and rugged pioneers pushing westward. What could possibly unite such a diverse group of people under a single identity? The answer, as it turned out, was woven into the very fabric of the Stars and Stripes. Let's travel back to the battlefields of the Revolution. For the soldiers huddled in their camps, far from home, and facing unimaginable hardship, the flag was more than just a military standard. It was a tangible piece of the home they were fighting for. When they saw those Stars and Stripes waving against the smoke-filled sky, it wasn't just a banner. It was a promise. A promise of liberty, of a new beginning, and of a nation where they were all equals in the fight for freedom. It reminded them that the farmer from Georgia and the blacksmith from Massachusetts were brothers in a common cause. This shared symbol, raised high in defiance and hope, began to forge a powerful bond among these men, a bond that transcended their regional differences. This feeling wasn't confined to the battlefields. Back home, families anxiously awaited news from the front lines. For them, the flag took on a deeply personal meaning. A mother, sewing a small flag to send to her son, poured her prayers and hopes into every stitch. Children learned to recognize it, associating it with the bravery of their fathers and brothers. When news of a victory arrived, communities would raise the flag in celebration. When a soldier fell, the flag that draped his casket was a solemn tribute, a recognition of his ultimate sacrifice for the nation it represented. It became a household icon, a fixture in parades, and a constant, visible reminder of the collective struggle and shared dream. The rich and the poor, the city dweller and the homesteader all looked to the same flag as a symbol of their shared destiny. Patriots and leaders of the time understood the power of this burgeoning symbolism. They used the flag to inspire and rally the people. Think of the iconic images we have from that era, like Washington crossing the Delaware. The flag is often depicted right there, a beacon of resolve amidst the icy waters. It was featured in paintings, printed in newspapers, and sung about in songs. This wasn't just propaganda. It was a reflection of a genuine, grassroots movement. People were starting to see themselves not just as Virginians or New Yorkers, but as Americans, and the flag was their banner. This process of the flag becoming a sacred object was crucial for the young nation's survival. In a country so vast and varied, with deep-seated loyalties to individual states, a unifying symbol was essential. The flag provided that it offered a common identity that people could rally around, a visual representation of the abstract ideals laid out in the Declaration of Independence. In the Constitution, it stood for a pluribus unum, out of many, one. It was a declaration to the world, and to themselves, that despite their differences, they were one people, united under a single banner. Of course, the story of the flag and what it represents is complex and has continued to evolve. The Civil War would later test this unity in the most profound way imaginable, with both sides claiming the legacy of the Revolution. The flag would be at the center of that conflict, its meaning debated, fought for, and ultimately reaffirmed as a symbol of a single, indivisible nation. But it all started here, in these early days. It began with the soldier who found courage in its colors, the family who found comfort in its presence, and the patriot who saw in it the bright future of a new world. They transformed a piece of fabric into a sacred emblem, a banner of unity that has endured for centuries. It became a symbol that could unite rich and poor, north and south, reminding everyone that they were part of something much larger than themselves. The United States of America. The flag became the people's flag, and in doing so, it helped create the American people. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter. The power of symbols in shaping our world is truly fascinating, isn't it? If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the heart of history. We love hearing your thoughts, so please drop a comment below. Until next time, stay curious. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the story of flags. Today, in Chapter 14, we re-exploring one of the most fascinating and human aspects of flag history, variations in handcrafted flags. It's a journey into a time before mass production, when every flag was a unique piece of art, a testament to the hands that stitched it. Imagine this. No factories, no automated looms, no precise digital templates. The year is 1777, and the Continental Congress has just passed the flag resolution, declaring that the flag of the United States would have 13 stripes and 13 stars. But that's where the specific instructions ended. They didn't say how the stars should be arranged, what shape they should have, or how big the blue canton should be. This beautiful ambiguity opened the door to incredible creativity. In homes and workshops across the young nation, people got to work. Seamstresses, soldiers, and patriots took up needle and thread, fabric, and dye to create their own versions of the stars and stripes. Each flag was a personal interpretation, a labor of love, and because of this, a stunning array of designs emerged. One of the most famous early arrangements is the Betsy Ross design, with the 13 stars forming a perfect circle. The story goes that this circular pattern was meant to symbolize equality, with no single state taking precedence over another. Whether Betsy Ross actually designed it is a topic of historical debate, but the circular star pattern remains an iconic and powerful symbol of unity from that era. Think about the skill it took to not only cut out 13 identical stars, but also to space them perfectly in a ring. But the circle was just one of many ideas. Other flag makers arranged the stars in neat, orderly rows. You might see a flag with 3 rows of stars, maybe in a 4-5-4 pattern, or 2 rows of 6 and 7. These designs had a very organized, almost military-like feel to them. They were straightforward and clear, reflecting a sense of order and structure that the new nation was striving to establish. Each row represented a block of states, standing together. Then you have my personal favorite, the scattered or random star patterns. These flags feel so full of life and energy. The stars are sprinkled across the blue canton, almost like a real constellation in the night sky. This design, sometimes called the Cowpens pattern after a famous Revolutionary War battle, seems to capture the chaotic, spirited, and untamed nature of the revolution itself. There's a freedom and a dynamism to it that is absolutely captivating. It's as if the flag maker was saying, "We are a new constellation, and our future is as boundless as the heavens." And it wasn't just the star arrangement that varied. The stars themselves were different. Some were 5-pointed, which was difficult to cut perfectly from fabric. A clever folding technique, often attributed to Betsy Ross, made this easier. But other flags featured six-pointed stars, which were simpler to construct from two overlapping triangles. Some even had eight-pointed stars. The canton's shade of blue could range from a deep, dark navy to a brighter, sky blue, depending on the dyes available. The red stripes could be a rich crimson or a brighter scarlet. These weren't mistakes or errors. They were reflections of the resources, skills, and artistic choices of the individuals who made them. A flag stitched on a ship might have been made from sailcloth, giving it a rugged, durable texture. A flag made for a wealthy merchant's home might have been crafted from fine silk, shimmering in the light. Each one tells a story not just of a nation, but of a person. This period of handcrafted flags lasted for decades. Even as new states joined the Union and more stars were added, the tradition of personal interpretation continued. We see flags with stars arranged to form a larger star, or even spelling out the new state's initials. It wasn't until the early 20th century, specifically with the Flag Act of 1912, that an official, standardized design was finally established, dictating the precise proportions and the arrangement of stars in horizontal rows. But what does this era of variation teach us? It shows us that the spirit of the flag wasn't confined to a single, rigid design. The unity it represented wasn't about uniformity. Instead, the spirit of the flag lived in the shared idea it represented: liberty, independence, and the coming together of 13 unique colonies to form one new nation. Each of these handmade flags, whether the stars were in a circle, in rows, or scattered like a galaxy, carried that exact same powerful spirit. They are a beautiful reminder that a symbol's power comes from the meaning we pour into it. These early flags are tangible pieces of history, imbued with the hopes, dreams, and tireless effort of the individuals who created them. They show a nation finding its identity, not through a top-down decree, but through the collective, creative expression of its people. So the next time you see a historical American flag with an unusual star pattern, take a moment to appreciate it. You're not just looking at an old piece of cloth. You're looking at a one-of-a-kind work of art, a personal story stitched into the fabric of a nation. It's a testament to a time when patriotism was a hands-on, handcrafted endeavor. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the beautiful variations of early American flags. It's a chapter that truly highlights the human element behind our national symbols. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to have you with us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the history of the American flag. Today, in Chapter 15, we're re-exploring what happened to the Stars and Stripes after the ink dried on the Treaty of Paris in 1783. The war was won, independence was secured, but the story of our flag was far from over. With peace came a new challenge. Building a nation, the 13 stripes and 13 stars, once a symbol of a rebellious alliance, now represented a unified, independent country. But as the United States began to grow, a Castellana Rose, how would the flag grow with it? The original design, a beautiful representation of the 13 colonies, was about to face its first big test. In 1791, Vermont was admitted to the Union, followed by Kentucky in 1792. For the first time, the nation had expanded beyond its original 13 states. This was a moment of celebration, but it also created a bit of a design dilemma. How should these new states be represented on the flag? Congress needed to act, and their decision would set a precedent for centuries to come. On January 13, 1794, the Second Flag Act was passed. This act decreed that, starting in May 1795, the flag of the United States would have 15 stripes and 15 stars. That's right. They added not only a star but also a stripe for both Vermont and Kentucky. Can you picture it? A flag with 15 stripes, alternating red and white. This version of the flag is famously known as the Star-Spangled Banner. It was this 15-star, a 15-stripe flag that flew over Fort McHenry during the War of 1812. It was this flag that a young lawyer named Francis Scott Key saw by the dawn's early light after a night of relentless bombardment. His awe and relief inspired him to write the poem that would later become our national anthem. The flag wasn't just a piece of cloth, it was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the nation's ability to endure and stand strong against adversity. This flag, waving defiantly, became an icon. It represented the spirit of a young country that, despite its internal debates and external threats, would not be broken. The sacrifices made during the revolution were not in vain. They had laid the foundation for a nation that was now defending its hard-won sovereignty. The flag was the visual embodiment of that enduring promise. But the nation didn't stop growing. Tennessee, Ohio, Louisiana, and Indiana soon joined the Union. By 1818, the United States had 20 states. Imagine adding a new stripe for every new state. The flag would have become unwieldy, its design increasingly cluttered. A flag with 20 stripes would look very different, and the iconic pattern of the original 13 would be lost. Lawmakers realized this was unsustainable. They needed a more practical and forward-thinking solution. This led to the Flag Act of 1818, a pivotal moment in our flag's history. The act was a brilliant compromise that honored both the past and the future. It stipulated two key things. First, the number of stripes would be returned to permanently honoring the original 13 colonies that fought for independence. This was a powerful nod to the nation's origins, ensuring that the foundation of the country would always be represented. The sacrifice of those first states would forever be part of the flag's design. Second, the act stated that a new star would be added to the blue canton for each new state admitted to the Union. This star would be officially added on the 4th of July following the state's admission. This was a stroke of genius. It created a system that was both dynamic and stable. The flag could now evolve alongside the country, representing its continuous growth and expansion, while its core design remained constant. This 1818 act is the reason our flag looks the way it does today. It established the elegant, scalable design we know and love. 13 stripes for our foundation, and a field of stars that tells the story of our nation's journey, state by state, from the 20 stars of 1818 to the 50 stars we have today. Each star represents a chapter in the American story. After 1783, the flag transformed from a battle banner into a symbol of a living, breathing nation. It became a reminder not just of the sacrifices of the Revolution, but of the ongoing project of American unity. It showed a country that was not static, but was constantly growing, welcoming new members into its fold, and adapting to the future without forgetting its past. Every time we look at the stars and stripes, we're seeing this history. We see the bravery of the original 13 colonies in the stripes, and we see the story of our nation's expansion in the constellation of stars. It's a design that is both a historical document and a symbol of future possibilities. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter. The story of our flag is the story of our country, full of debate, growth, and enduring ideals. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We appreciate your support. See you next time. Hey, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we re-diving into a story you see every day, but might not know the full tale behind. The stars on the American flag. We all know the iconic 50-star flag, a symbol recognized around the world. But have you ever stopped to think about how we got from the original 13 stars to the 50 we have today? It's a fascinating journey of growth, change, and a little bit of design chaos, all stitched into one incredible banner. So, grab a seat, and let's unfold the history of the flag's ever-growing constellation. It all began, of course, with the original 13 colonies. The first official Flag Act of 1777 declared that the flag of the United States would have 13 stripes, alternating red and white, and that the Union would be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. The most famous design from this era is the Betsy Ross flag, with its stars arranged in a neat circle. The fun fact, the 1777 Act didn't specify the star arrangement, so early flags were a creative free-for-all. Some had stars in rows, some in arches, and some just scattered them across the blue canton. It was a beautiful, slightly messy symbol of a brand new, unified nation. But the United States wasn't destined to stay at 13 states. Soon, new territories wanted to join the Union. In 1791, Vermont was admitted, followed by Kentucky in 1792. This posed a problem. What do we do with the flag? Do we add more stars? More stripes? Congress decided on both. The Flag Act of 1794 officially changed the design to 15 stripes and 15 stars to welcome Vermont and Kentucky. This 15-stripe flag is famously known as the Star-Spangled Banner, the very flag that flew over Fort McHenry and inspired Francis Scott Key to write the national anthem. For over 2 decades, this was the official flag of the United States. However, as the nation continued to expand westward, it became clear that adding a new stripe for every new state was just not practical. Imagine a flag with 30 or 40 stripes. It would look more like a beach towel. By 1818, 5 more states, Tennessee, Ohio, Louisiana, Indiana, and Mississippi, had joined the Union, bringing the total to 20. The flag situation was getting out of hand. Congress needed a permanent solution. So, in 1818, they passed a new Flag Act, and this one was brilliant in its foresight. The act did 2 key things. First, it reset the number of stripes back to 13, permanently honoring the original colonies. This was a crucial nod to the nation's foundation. Second, it established the rule that a new star would be added to the Blue Union for each new state. This new star would be officially added on the 4th of July following the state's admission. This act created the dynamic, evolving flag we know today, a design that could grow with the country without losing its original identity. From that point on, the flag became a living document of American expansion. As the 19th century unfolded, the star field grew rapidly. Think about it. Every time a new state was carved out of the frontier, a new star was born on the flag. We saw the 24-star flag for Missouri's admission in 1821, which was the flag for explorers like Jedediah Smith. Then came the 28-star flag when Texas joined in 1845, a flag carried into the Mexican-American War. By the time of the Civil War, the flag had 34 stars, even as the nation was tearing itself apart. President Lincoln famously refused to remove the stars of the seceded states, insisting that the Union was perpetual and unbroken. The flag itself became a symbol of that fight for unity. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw another wave of expansion, filling in the map of the continental United States. Teflagre to 38 stars, with Colorado, the Centennial State, in 1876. Then a burst of 5 states in 1889 and 1890 brought the star count to 44. By 1912, with the admission of Arizona and New Mexico, the familiar 48-star flag was born. This version of the flag would have the longest run up to that point, serving for 47 years. It was the flag our grandparents and great-grandparents grew up with. It flew through to world wars and the Great Depression. For millions of Americans, the 48-star flag, with its neat 6 rows of 8 stars, was asterisk. The asterisk American flag. Then came the modern era. After decades with 48 stars, the Cold War space race was heating up, and America was looking to the future. In 1959, Alaska became the 49th state, and for one brief, shining year, the 49-star flag flew over the nation. Its unique 7x7 staggered grid is a collector's item now, but it was quickly replaced. Just a year later, in 1960, Hawaii joined the Union, bringing our star count to the Big 5 to 0. The design for our current 50-star flag has a fascinating story of its own. It was actually designed by a 17-year-old high school student named Robert G. Heft for a history project. He got a B on it, but his teacher said if his design was adopted by Congress, he'd change the grade to an A. Heft sent his design to his congressman, and out of thousands of submissions, his simple yet elegant design of staggered rows was chosen. And yes, his teacher kept his promise and changed the grade to an A. This 50-star flag has now been our official banner for over 60 years, making it the longest-serving design in American history. So, the next time you see the stars and stripes, remember that it's more than just a piece of cloth. It's a historical timeline, a symbol of unity, and a representation of a nation's journey from 13 small colonies on the coast to a continental nation of 50 states. Each star tells a story of expansion, debate, and the enduring idea of e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this journey through the history of the flag stars. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories behind the symbols we see every day. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen a flag with a different number of stars. See you next time. Hello history buffs and flag fans. Welcome back to our journey through the stars and stripes. Have you ever wondered why we celebrate Flag Day on June 14th? It's not just a random date picked out of a hat. Today, we re-jumping forward from the flag's creation in 1777 to the 19th and early 20th centuries to uncover the story of how this special day of recognition was born. It's a tale of passionate teachers, dedicated students, and a grassroots movement that swept the nation, all culminating in a presidential proclamation. So, how did a simple desire to honor the flag turn into a national observance? Let's dive into the origins of Flag Day. It all started not with a politician or a general, but with a school teacher. The year is 1885, and in a small public school in Waukesha, Wisconsin, a teacher named Bernard J. Sagrand had a brilliant idea. He wanted to instill a sense of patriotism and respect for the nation's symbol in his students. So, on June 14th, the 108th anniversary of the official adoption of the Stars and Stripes, he arranged for his students to observe the day as the flag's birthday. They held a small, heartfelt ceremony, and little did they know they were planting the seeds for a national tradition. Sagrand was so passionate about this cause that he spent the rest of his life writing articles and giving speeches, tirelessly campaigning for a national Flag Day. He became known as the Father of Flag Day, and his dedication was truly the spark that lit the fire. But Sagrand wasn't alone in his efforts. Across the country, other patriots were having similar ideas, completely independently. It was like the idea was just in the air, waiting to be caught. A few years later, in 1889, another educator named George Bob, a kindergarten teacher in New York City, also planned a ceremony for his students on June 14th. His celebration was so well received that the State Board of Education for New York adopted the practice for all their schools. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't a top-down mandate from Washington, D.C. This was a movement bubbling up from the ground, from classrooms and communities, driven by ordinary citizens who simply loved their flag and wanted to share that feeling. It was a beautiful, organic expression of American patriotism. Then, in 1893, the movement got another major boost. Elizabeth Duane Gillespie, a descendant of Benjamin Franklin and a prominent figure in the Society of Colonial Dames of Pennsylvania, successfully campaigned to have the flag flown over all public buildings in Philadelphia on June 14th. The following year, the governor of New York took it a step further, directing that the flag be displayed on all public buildings in the state. On that day, the movement was gaining serious momentum. It was no longer just a school activity. It was becoming a public, statewide observance. From a small schoolhouse in Wisconsin to the bustling cities of New York and Philadelphia, the idea of a Flag Day was capturing the hearts and minds of Americans everywhere. One of the most organized and influential efforts came from the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks. This fraternal organization was instrumental in pushing for national recognition. In 1907, the Elks made the observance of June 14th as Flag Day a mandatory practice for all their local lodges. Then, in 1911, they passed a resolution to petition President William Howard Taft to declare the date a national holiday. Their organized lobbying efforts were a powerful force, taking the grassroots sentiments of people like Sagrand and Bolch and elevating them to the national stage. This shows the incredible power of civic organizations in shaping national traditions. They provided the structure and the voice needed to get the attention of the federal government. The tireless work of all these individuals and groups finally paid off. While it wasn't yet a federal holiday in the sense of a day off from work, the movement achieved its primary goal. On May 30th, 1916, President Woodrow Wilson, in the midst of a world at war and a rising tide of national pride, issued a presidential proclamation establishing June 14th as the official date for National Flag Day. He called on all Americans to display the stars and stripes at their homes and on public buildings to show their significant expression of our thoughtful love of America. It was a monumental victory for everyone who had championed the cause for over 3 decades. The flag finally had its official birthday party recognized by the entire nation. However, the story doesn't quite end there. While President Wilson's proclamation was a huge step, it took a few more decades for Flag Day to be cemented in law. It wasn't until August 3, 1949, that an act of Congress, signed by President Harry S. Truman, officially designated June 14th of each year as National Flag Day. This act codified the tradition that had been growing for over 60 years. While it's not a federal holiday where most people get the day off, it remains a day of national observance. It's a time to reflect on the flag's history, its symbolism, and the principles of liberty and justice for which it stands. So, the next time June 14th rolls around and you see Old Glory waving proudly from a neighbor's porch or a public flagpole, you'll know the incredible story behind it. It wasn't the creation of a powerful committee in Washington, but the culmination of decades of effort from passionate, everyday Americans. It started in a classroom with a teacher who believed in the power of a symbol and grew into a nationwide movement that united citizens in a shared love for their country. From Bernard Segrin's one-room schoolhouse to President Truman's signature, the birth of Flag Day is a testament to the power of grassroots patriotism and the enduring love affair between America and its flag. And that's a wrap on the fascinating birth of Flag Day. It is a powerful reminder that one person with a passionate idea can truly make a difference and inspire a nation. What does the flag mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us on this historical journey. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our series on the story of the American flag. In this chapter, we're re-exploring something truly special. How the stars and stripes move beyond battlefields and government buildings to become a cherished part of everyday American life. It's a story of patriotism weaving itself into the very fabric of the nation's schools, parades, and homes. So, how did this powerful symbol become so personal and widespread? Let's rewind to the late 19th century. After the Civil War, there was a powerful movement to reunify the country and instill a shared sense of national identity. One of the most visible and heartfelt ways this was achieved was through the flag. Organizations like the Grand Army of the Republic, a fraternity of Union veterans, championed the idea of placing a flag in every schoolhouse. They believed that seeing the flag every day would teach young Americans about the sacrifices made for their freedom and foster a deep sense of loyalty. This movement caught fire. In 1892, to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus's arrival in the Americas, a magazine called The Youth's Companion published the first version of the Pledge of Allegiance. The idea was simple but profound. To have children across the nation, from all different backgrounds, stand together and declare their loyalty to a single flag and the republic it represents. The schoolhouse flag movement was a massive success. Soon, laws were passed in many states, mandating that a U.S. flag be flown at every public school. For millions of American children, the day began with the sight of the flag and the sound of the pledge. It became a daily ritual, a constant, unifying reminder of their shared identity as Americans. This wasn't just happening in schools. The flag began to appear everywhere. Think about the classic American parade. Whether it's for the 4th of July, Memorial Day, or a local town celebration, what's at the heart of it? The color guard, proudly marching with the American flag. The sight of the flag leading a parade, with crowds cheering and people placing their hands over their hearts, became a quintessential American experience. It transformed civic celebrations into powerful displays of national pride. People lined the streets, waving small flags of their own, creating a sea of red, white, and blue. It was a visual representation of E pluribus unum, out of many, one. The flag's journey didn't stop at the schoolyard or the parade route. It continued right up to the front porch. The practice of displaying the flag at home began to grow, especially during times of national significance. During World War I and World War II, displaying the flag became a way for families to show support for the troops in the war effort. A flag in the window or on a pole in the front yard was a silent but powerful statement of solidarity and hope. It said, We are part of this. We stand with our nation. After the wars, this tradition continued. Flying the flag on national holidays like Memorial Day, Flag Day, and the 4th of July became a common practice. But it also became a way for individuals to express their personal patriotism on any given day. The flag on a front porch is more than just decoration. It's a personal connection to the larger American story. It's a quiet declaration of belonging, of pride in one's community and country. It links the family inside that home to generations of Americans who have lived, worked, and sacrificed under the very same emblem. From the classroom where children learn its history, to the parades that celebrate its journey, to the homes where it stands as a beacon of pride, the flag has become deeply woven into the tapestry of American life. It's not just a symbol of the government. It's a symbol of the people. It has been a source of comfort in times of sorrow, a symbol of unity in times of division, and a banner of celebration in times of joy. Think about the iconic images. The flag being raised over Iwo Jima, firefighters hoisting it at Ground Zero, or an astronaut planting it on the moon. These moments are seared into our collective memory because they capture the resilience, hope, and spirit of a nation, all embodied in those stars and stripes. The flag's presence in our daily lives serves as a constant, gentle reminder of the principles it stands for: liberty, justice, and the ongoing pursuit of a more perfect union. It reflects the nation's history, its triumphs, and its struggles. It connects a farmer in Kansas, a tech worker in California, and a student in Florida to a shared narrative. Each time we see it, whether it is snapping in the wind above a post office or hanging quietly from a neighbor's porch, we are participating in a tradition that spans centuries. This journey, from a military standard to a part of the American household, is a testament to the flag's enduring power to inspire and unite. It has become a personal emblem for millions, a piece of living history that we see, touch, and honor in our everyday lives. It represents a promise of freedom and opportunity that each generation is tasked with upholding. The story of the flag in American life is ultimately our story. Story of how a nation expresses its identity, its values, and its enduring hope for the future. One flag at a time. Thank you so much for joining me on this chapter of our journey. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment below and share what the flag means to you. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever seen a flag? A simple piece of cloth, and felt a lump in your throat? A surge of pride, a wave of nostalgia, or even a pang of sorrow? It's not just fabric and dye, is it? It's a symbol, a story, a promise. Today, we're going to explore the profound respect, the solemn rituals, and the deep reverence surrounding one of the most powerful symbols in the world, the American flag. From the front porches of small towns to the grandest national monuments, the Stars and Stripes is a constant presence in American life. It's a backdrop to our history and a beacon for our future. But what makes it so much more than just a national banner? It's the shared experiences it represents. It's the memory of every soldier who fought under it, every immigrant who saw it as a sign of hope, and every citizen who pledged allegiance to the republic for which it stands. This flag has witnessed triumphs and tragedies, debates and unity. It's been to the moon and back. It's draped the caskets of heroes and been raised by school children. Each thread is woven with the stories of millions, creating a tapestry of a nation's journey. This deep emotional connection is why flag etiquette is so important. These aren't just arbitrary rules. They are a language of respect. Think of it as a national handshake, a way of showing honor to the flag and everything it represents. First, let's talk about displaying the flag. The fundamental rule is that the flag should always be treated with the utmost care and respect. It should never touch the ground or any surface beneath it. This isn't because the ground is unclean, but because it symbolizes keeping the nation's honor held high, never lowered or sunk. When you see a flag flying, it should be briskly hoisted at sunrise and lowered ceremoniously at sunset. If you want to fly it at night, it must be properly illuminated, a symbol that the nation's spirit never sleeps. When displayed on a wall or in a window, the union that the blue field with the stars should always be in the upper left corner. Why? Because That's the position of honor. It's like when you read a book. You start at the top left. Similarly, the flag's point of honor is where the eye naturally goes first. When flown with other flags on the same staff, the American flag is always at the peak. When flown on adjacent staffs, it should be hoisted first and lowered last. This isn't about superiority over other nations, but about showing respect for one's own country within its own borders. You'll often see the flag at This is a powerful and somber gesture, a sign of national mourning. When the nation grieves the loss of a great leader or mourns a tragedy, lowering the flag is a visible, public expression of that shared sorrow. But there is a specific ritual to it. The flag is first briskly hoisted to the top of the staff, and then slowly, deliberately lowered to the half-staff position. At the end of the day, it's raised back to the peak before being lowered completely. This symbolizes that even in mourning, the nation's spirit first rises to its full height before bowing in respect. Now, what about when the flag becomes worn or tattered? A flag that is faded, torn, or frayed is no longer a fitting emblem for display. It's time for it to be retired. But you don't just throw it in the trash. That would be the ultimate sign of disrespect. Instead, the United States Flag Code specifies that the flag, when it is in such a condition that it is no longer a fitting emblem for display, should be destroyed in a dignified way, preferably by burning. This might sound surprising, right? Burning something usually seems destructive. But in this context, it's a ceremonial purification. Think of it as a funeral for the flag. It's a way of respectfully disposing of it, returning its elements to the earth. Many organizations, like the American Legion, VFW posts, and Boy and Girl Scout troops, hold solemn flag retirement ceremonies. It's a moving event, often involving a fire, a moment of silence, and a reflection on the flag's service. It's the final act of honor for a symbol that has served its purpose. Perhaps the most recognized and intricate ritual involving the flag is its ceremonial folding. Have you ever seen an honor guard at a military funeral and watched, mesmerized, as they fold the flag into a tight, crisp triangle? Every single fold has a meaning. It's not just a practical way to store the flag. It's a silent, reverent story being told. The process involves 13 folds, each one symbolic. The ceremony begins with the flag held taut and level by two people. The first fold of the striped section over the blue field is a symbol of life. The second fold is a symbol of our belief in eternal life. The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of the veteran departing our ranks. The fourth fold represents our weaker nature. For as American citizens trusting in God, it is to Him we turn for divine guidance. As the folds continue, they honor mothers, fathers, and those who serve in the armed forces. The flag is folded lengthwise twice. Then a triangular fold is started from the striped end, continuing until only the blue field with the stars is visible. The final shape is a triangle, reminiscent of the tricorn hats worn by the Continental soldiers during the Revolutionary War. When the flag is completely folded, the stars are uppermost, reminding us of our national motto, "In God we trust." The folded flag is then presented to the next of kin, a final tribute from a grateful nation. The person presenting the flag will say something like, "On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service." It's one of the most poignant and powerful moments you can witness. It transforms a piece of cloth into a final, tangible embrace from the country the individual served. This reverence isn't just for military ceremonies. It's for all of us. The flag belongs to every American. It represents the promise of liberty and justice for all. A promise we are all responsible for upholding. It's a symbol of unity, a reminder that we are one nation, despite our many differences. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. That's the story woven into its fabric. When you see the flag pass in a parade, the proper etiquette is to stand at attention, face the flag, and place your right hand over your heart. Those in uniform render a military salute. It's a small, simple gesture, but it's a public affirmation of your respect for the country, its history, and its future. It is a moment to pause and reflect on the sacrifices made to protect the freedoms it represents. The Stars and Stripes is more than a flag. It's a living document. It's a promise we renew every time we pledge allegiance, every time we sing the national anthem, and every time we treat it with the respect it deserves. It's a symbol of our shared identity and our collective aspirations. The respect, rituals, and reverence surrounding it are the ways we keep its story alive and pass its legacy on to the next generation. So the next time you see Old Glory waving in the breeze, take a moment. Think about its journey. Think about the hands that sewed it, the battles it has witnessed, the hope it has inspired. It's not just cloth and thread. It's the heart of a nation, flying free. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this incredible symbol. If you found this video meaningful, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more journeys into the heart of our shared culture. We'd love to have you in our community. Until next time, stay curious and respectful. As we draw the curtains on our journey through the year 1777, we're left with more than just dates and battle records. We're left with a legacy, one woven into the very fabric of a flag. Think about it. A simple design of 13 stripes, alternating red and white, and the constellation of 13 white stars on a blue field. In that moment, on June 14th, 1777, it was just a resolution, a piece of paper. It was a banner for a collection of colonies, a fledgling nation fighting for its very existence against the most powerful empire on earth. It was a flag of hope, but also a flag of uncertainty. This flag, born in the crucible of revolution, wasn't just a piece of cloth. It was a declaration. Each stripe represented a colony that had dared to dream of a different future. Each star in that new constellation symbolized a state, united in a common cause, yet sovereign in its own right. It was a visual representation of e pluribus unum, out of many, one. When this flag was first unfurled on a battlefield, it was a signal of defiance. To the soldiers who rallied beneath it, it was a tangible reminder of what they were fighting for. Not just land, but liberty. Not just independence, but the right to self-determination. Imagine seeing it for the first time. For a continental soldier, cold and hungry at Valley Forge, that flag fluttering in the wind wasn't just an emblem of their new government. It was a promise of a home, a future, and a nation they were building with their own hands and sacrifices. For a civilian in Philadelphia or Boston, seeing it raised over a public building was a profound statement that they were no longer subjects of a king, but citizens of a republic. It was a symbol of a radical idea taking root. But the story of this flag didn't end with the revolution. As America grew, the flag grew with it. With each new state that joined the Union, a new star was added to that blue field. From 13 it grew to 15, then 20, then 30, and eventually 50. This evolution is a visual chronicle of the nation's expansion, a story of exploration, settlement, conflict, and compromise, all stitched into one evolving emblem. The stripes remained at 13, a permanent tribute to the original colonies who sparked the flame of independence. It was a design that looked forward while always honoring its past. This adaptability is part of its genius. The flag wasn't a static relic. It was a living document. It traveled west with pioneers on dusty trails. It sailed across oceans on merchant ships and naval vessels, and it was planted on new frontiers, from the shores of California to the surface of the moon. In each new context, it carried the weight of its history, but also absorbed new meanings. It became a symbol of opportunity for millions of immigrants who sailed past the Statue of Liberty, seeing Old Glory as the flag of a land where they could build a new life. Of course, the meaning of this flag has also been contested. It has been at the center of profound national debates, from the Civil War, where brother fought against brother under different banners, to the Civil Rights Movement, where activists challenged the nation to live up to the ideals of freedom and equality that the flag was meant to represent. This struggle over its meaning is not a weakness. It's a testament to its power. The flag represents an ideal, a more perfect union, that each generation is called upon to strive for and redefine. It forces us to ask, what does it mean to be an American? What are the responsibilities that come with the freedoms it symbolizes? Over the centuries, this simple design from 1777 transcended its national origins. It became something more. In the darkest days of the 20th century, during 2 world wars, it became a global symbol of liberation. For people living under tyranny in Europe and Asia, The sight of the American flag meant hope. It meant that freedom was on the march, that oppression would not have the final word. It was raised over liberated cities and concentration camps, a stark contrast to the emblems of hate and conquest it replaced. After the wars, during the long twilight struggle of the Cold War, the flag represented an alternative to totalitarianism. It was smuggled behind the Iron Curtain, becoming a clandestine symbol for dissidents who dreamed of open societies and free expression. When the Berlin Wall fell, people waved American flags alongside their own national colors, not as a sign of allegiance to the United States, but as an embrace of the universal ideals of freedom and democracy that the flag had come to embody. Today, you can see the stars and stripes in the most unexpected places. You'll see it at pro-democracy rallies in Hong Kong, on the backpacks of students in Seoul, or in the artwork of activists in Tehran. For many around the world, it has become a shorthand for freedom itself. The freedom to speak, to protest, to choose your own destiny. It is a symbol that carries a story of a revolution that started in 1777, but continues to echo in the hearts of people fighting for their own rights, in their own lands, to this very day. It's a remarkable journey, from a humble resolution in Philadelphia, designed for a struggling rebellion, to a global icon recognized on every continent. A simple pattern of 13 stars and 13 stripes became a vessel for the aspirations of millions. It's a legacy that proves that sometimes the most powerful ideas can be contained in the simplest of designs. A legacy born in the struggle of a young nation, which ultimately became a gift of hope to the world. The legacy of 1777 is not just history. It's a living, breathing story that we are all still a part of. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Your support helps us continue to explore the past and understand how it shapes our present. Until next time, stay curious.